Welcome to the Arrest All Mimics podcast with your host Ben Talon.
Hello and welcome to Arrest All Mimics. I am Ben Talon, your host. This is the Illustration Limited podcast celebrating original thinking and creative innovation. I don't know if you guys are all on the wind down the same as me, but oh god, the Christmas lull has kicked in already and I've got work to do. I can't afford to be doing this just yet. But I'm fighting through it. I'm getting there. It's exciting times ahead. 2016 shaping up to be pretty cool. Just found out some really cool news. Champagne and Wax Crayons, my debut book, has been listed at number 5 in the top 10 books, graphic design books by Creative Block. So I'm buzzing about that at the minute. It's really exciting stuff. It's the reason this podcast is going in the first place is thanks to that book, because I really enjoyed the documentation of this crazy industry and the exciting kind of and terrifying day-to-day life of being freelance and being in the creative industries in 2015. So I'm really made up about that, and if we can get anywhere close to that with the podcast, then I'll be a happy man. So keep everything coming in, keep your thoughts coming into us at Arrest All Mimics on the Twitter. Can't wait to see what you make of today's guest. As we're getting close to Christmas, I handpicked this guest because I wanted to look at the contrast and the contrast between everything from the big kind of departmental Christmas shebang that we see on Regent Street and all that kind of thing. But I wanted to go and explore the other end of the scale and what's becoming a really prominent, really vibrant makers scene through sites like Etsy and the Crafty Fox Market and all these cool things that are going on that are celebrating independent makers and people who hand paint, hand draw, hand make, handcraft all these amazing, beautiful goods that are one of a kind or really limited runs. And there's something really special about that, about being able to tell the story behind a product when you give someone a gift or whatever that may be. So what happened was, a few months back, I was chatting to my girlfriend Laura Hawkins of Little Birds Talk, who is recently become a maker and is a graphic designer, and she went to a talk in Shoreditch. Or was it Hoxton? I can't remember. Anyway, she saw a talk by Sandra Dieckmann, who is a German illustrator, and she's very prominent on the makers scene. So she does really well with her prints, and she makes these beautiful ceramic gifts and lots of other things, notebooks and all that kind of stuff with her beautiful nature-inspired illustrations. And Laura came back really fired up, really excited, and really quite inspired by what Sandra had to say. So I looked into this a little further, and a little while down the line I got birthday presents for Laura from Sandra, and I went and visited her studio, which is called Mama Wolf. Really, really fucking cool. It's kind of, Sandra describes it as being like a child's den, how you envision that ultimate den when you're a kid. And that's what they've gone for. She shares with a few of their illustrators, and they've got this really cool setup over in Shoreditch, just out of Shoreditch anyway, and I think is it Hackney, Hoxton? I get mixed up with East London, but anyway, it's that part of the world, and they do some really cool work in that studio. So I got in touch with Sandra and said, hey, look, would you be interested in talking to me, because I'd like to chat about the independent end of the Christmas present market and the makers scene, and obviously not just for Christmas, but it's a kind of prominent time. And what's happened this year is I've bought every Christmas present that I've bought so far, which is like 75% of my list of people to buy for, is all from independent makers, which is really kind of cool. And it's nice because you get a one-to-one appreciation with the maker of the product, especially at markets when you can go and talk to them about what their work is, what their inspirations are. And even on the internet, on things like Etsy, people tell these amazing stories behind these really cool gifts and prints and t-shirts and all sorts, and it's really kind of cool. So we're going to be talking to Sandra about the makers market and her background and how why her illustrations are so inspired by nature. We're going to be talking about how the whole David and Goliath thing, how all these independent makers are up against at this time of year, particularly up against Liberty London. I saw a talk the other week at Offset Design Festival, which was really cool. In Shoreditch, and it was by Liz Sylvester, who I believe is the visual director. I can't remember her exact title, but she's in charge of all the the major window displays, the whole store. Like, she's chatting about influence by Wes Anderson and how that's this kind of luxury end of the market is all tailored, and it's really cool. Like, some really cool stories by Liz, and really exciting stuff. And they were having an opening on the Sunday, major launch. Like, Kylie Minogue was going to be there. And it's all really cool, actually, and there's something very enchanted about kind of being in these kind of stores at that time of year. But as a creative myself, who's a one-man band, who's used to hand drawing and hand painting things, I was more interested in the individuals and the small man at the other end of the scale. So I'm going to be talking to Sandra Dieckmann, who's amazingly successful and has been doing some of the nicest, most intricate illustrations. So I hope you kind of get a nice feel for what's going on at the moment in the makers market, and Sandra really lets us into that world, and as ever the conversation goes in a million different interesting directions. So let us know your thoughts, drop us an email or hit us on the Twitter. Email is arrestalmimics@gmail.com. Can't wait to hear what you think, and I hope everyone has an awesome Christmas. We're going to be coming back early 2016 with the show, kind of for a new phase, hitting it strong in the new year. We're going to leave it over Christmas. This will be the last show now for 2015. So I'd like to just take a moment to thank everyone who supported the show. I've had some fantastic correspondence from both people that I know and people I've never met in my life from all over the world. And a lot of people felt really inspired by the work that we've been doing and the people that we've been talking to. And that was the idea. This is basically pulling back the curtain and just letting you inside the minds and the backgrounds and the experiences of some of the most innovative people in the creative industries today. And we want to push forward with that, and we want to work. We want to get partners on board. We want to get sponsors on board. We want to make this a really serious, badass show. And if you've got any ideas or that's of interest to you, then just get in touch, because we want to work with people to make this stronger and widen our outreach and talk to all manner of interesting people in the arts. So have a wonderful Christmas, and I hope this show is cool. I hope you enjoy it, and let us know as ever your thoughts. What's your studio called again? Bad Mama. Not Bad Mama. What have I got?
Really
Mama Wolf.
Bad Mama.
Bad Mama. I like Bad Mama though. I like calling mine Bad Mama or Bad Grandma.
Thug Life.
Brilliant.
Oh, sorry, no, it's called Mama Wolf.
Where does that come from?
That comes from a client, or stockist actually, that I was working with for a few years, just calling me Mama Wolf. She started with Sandra, and then one day she was like, all right, Mama Wolf, next time. And then I told the others, and I was laughing in the studio, and so they started calling me Mama Wolf, because I'm the one that got the studio and rented out to them. So they just adopted me.
That's a cool
as
nickname.
their mother.
It's a cool nickname. It's better than any nicknames I've ever asked, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're the baby wolves now.
Baby wolves, I like that.
I know. And this is a den. Although I, quite like to be a bear.
It definitely has a den feel
to
the place. It's very cosy, and it's absolutely covered in decor of all your work, which is amazing.
Get your money's worth.
Does it get you in the mindset? Does it get you in the right frame of mind to work?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's really weird, but when I was first starting out in university, I hung up the work of other artists in front of me to spur me on, because it was just work that I really admired, like Joachim Nordström and Tove Jansson and stuff, and stories and pieces of writing and stuff. And then the more I created, I started sticking up my own work in between. And then suddenly I realized one day, when a photographer came around to do an interview, that was just my work up entirely. And I felt so conscious of it, because that's not what you want to portray. And but it was kind of like a timeline for me to check where I was at. And and then I think in recent years my inspiration wall is always full with other stuff, so that changes, things that I find in pin-up or people send me. So but it definitely gets you in the mood, when you come into Mama Wolf. This is the illustration den, this is where we work, and it's the dedicated space,
it does. It feels it immediately. Even when I came in, I was like, I could easily just sit down now and get a sketchbook out and start working, and I think that's really important to have that in a workspace.
Definitely, just
I went down a similar road. I used to put the same thing. I used to put all the people's work I was looking at up on my walls, and then only when I moved into my most recent studio did I put down all of, my previous work, and like you say, I felt slightly embarrassed at first. Am I just getting arrogant now? But then actually no, it's like it is nice to actually have a little bit of pride, and so I think actually I've worked hard for this and I've come this far, and you can see where you're at. It is nice to get a marker point.
It's not just like 10 illustrations, it's like 100. And I work too much.
Well, where are you from, Sandra?
I'm from Germany originally, and I came here when I was 19.
Yeah.
I didn't intend to stay. I literally just had a bag with me. I left everything behind and came to work as a nanny. Okay. But yeah, I never left. I worked for a very strange person in Islington who's a professor of psychology who gives interviews regarding the crisis in Baghdad and stuff on the BBC, but he's actually a real terror at home. He is quite controlling. He didn't really like me mixing or having an English boyfriend. Anyway, there was a lot of stuff going on, and I decided that mentally it was not good. I was looking after 3 children, one of them severely disabled, and that only employed me on the basis that I previously looked after my mother who had died of a brain tumor, and so I came out of like a harrowing experience into like like freedom, but not really, because again I found myself in this caring position that took me quite a lot of energy to realize that like my name was Sandra, and I was like, this was my life, and I was just gonna like not be used anymore, but like walk away from it and do my own thing. So
quite
I think,
empowering then ultimately.
Oh yeah. And also I was dating a boy,
Yeah, there's always something.
There's always a boy, yeah. So I didn't, I stuck around and worked odd jobs and went back to college and did my portfolio. Yeah. Before going to university here, but it was completely unplanned. Very like fluxy,
Yeah. I think often the best, that when you find the right path, it often is quite circumstantial.
Yeah.
So have you a creative person? Have you always been quite creative, or is it something that you've come into more recently?
Yeah, definitely. I think like making. My mum was a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
So there was always a lot of making, preparing like kindergarten classes in the house. Making banana alligators when I had lunch with the kids, just like lots of books around me, children's books, and lots of stories. Like that was really important. And my dad loved to draw and paint, and so it was very holistic, like our household, for a while as I was smaller, and before my mum became ill, and my dad has some problems. I kind of like had to move away from that life in a way and run. But it was definitely the basis for me, like the roots of that joy that I found in having those hours spent making things, like in a way like an escape from everyday life. I remember as a teenager having this big, I can never say the word, encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia of like the great masters that I stole from my dad's bookshelf, and that then lost the spine because I was just grabbing it with my hands so much and looking through it. And I'd like literally, if we had arguments or family life was difficult, I'd lock myself into the basement with a roll of wallpaper and my like gouache, and then I would try and recreate things. So I'd like paint the Mona Lisa, or I'd paint like August Macke, or the Blue Rider movement, like expressionist paintings and stuff. And I'd like try and get them really accurately, and then I'd frame them and hang them in the house. And my relatives got them given, and some of them still have them. So that was like the root of like, I think, training myself to be.
That's quite interesting actually, because that's what I did until the age of 17, 18 when I went to college. All I would do is exactly the same thing. I would work more or less exclusively with pencils and fill in the lines with felt tips, and I would draw sportsmen and probably just sportsmen.
Football.
The occasional musician.
Oh, wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling, of course, yeah. But actually, although that stuff was only ever really mimicry, the technical skills probably came from that. My ability to draw and my eye for composition and all those things. I had no idea I was learning that at that age, and I doubt that you did. It was just something for pleasure, I imagine, myself.
It was like reading a book. It
Yeah,
was just like,
of course.
or playing I guess people play computer games now. Like, we had a Super Nintendo back then, and we were allowed to play like an hour a day. We had to do other things.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was my deal. I got an hour a day if I'd been seen to have done my homework or drawn.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if it was sunny, no, forget it, get out and play.
Play in the woods. Yeah, definitely, always out. Same with TV. I was allowed to watch nature programs, and I was allowed to watch Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and the news, and that was it. Like sometimes a feature film.
That's like, I'm going to segue off that, but that's fascinating because your style of work, for anyone that's not seen Sandra's work, have a look. And I don't know, it's nature, a lot of nature, heavily rooted in nature, but with a real nice fantasy, folksy element. Would that be an accurate description?
Yeah, I think that's what people have written. Like, it's deeply rooted in like Northern European folk tale, and I grew up with the Brothers Grimm, and I grew up, with that feeling in the back of my head that there was forest around my house, there was things to explore, tree houses to build, lakes to cycle to and swim in, and it was like, there wasn't, it was undisturbed, it was like, it was cold, it was warm in the summer, and you just had the elements around you, and you just, it was like, I was really at home outside, and I think maybe living in a city kind of perpetuates that whole notion of drawing this theme, because I maybe forever want to try and get back to that that safe place that I was at when I was a child, I think. So there's something very personal and kind of dreamlike about it, I think. Which is kind of strange when you spend years more or less drawing for yourself, and then it becomes your job, because working for big clients is very, very different. It's like there are all sorts of things that you run into, like agencies not taking you on because you don't draw enough humans, and you think, but I don't want to draw humans, and like you think, I can get by, I'm not going to start. And it's like kind of like thinking, like until I get to the stage where I now actually like probably tweeted a few days ago, like I'd love to draw more humans, because like I am at the point now where I'm ready for it. But like, so yeah.
It has to be natural, doesn't it? It has to be natural. I was having this conversation with another friend who's an illustrator recently. And he'd had a chat with his agency, and they'd suggested that the things that were lacking from his portfolio, but actually none of those things were. He told me, and I said, no, it's not you. And he knew that. He agreed. And I think you have to be kind of unwilling to compromise, like you say, until it becomes a natural part of the process. And then when you become organically drawn to that, that's when you need to pursue that urge and do it. And that's when the best things happen, because it's obviously happened for a reason, whether it's subconscious or it's an experience that's made you want to do that.
But I think it's kind of like maybe just one pathway to go down, because I can observe a lot of my friends who either work very commercially or work in children's illustration, and they do very well at following a brief and very well at being directed. They like to be directed. So I think it's also like a character choice, whereas like I might be quite stubborn and, like I said, a lot of self-initiated work. I regard myself sometimes more like a fine artist, really. I mean, my work is in an illustration style, but it appeals to the folk. Like the buyers are then like children up to 90-year-old grannies, and I get letters from all sorts of ages because it just resonated with something that they're going through in their life or a story that they've lived through. So like it's kind of like,
I think when you're uncompromising to the degree that it's so you, I think it transcends trends, and it then clicks with so many people, because there's a human element that people connect with, and I think that's a wonderful thing, and that's one of the things I admired when it was Laura who's sat with us for this podcast, who's my girlfriend who introduced me to your work.
Yeah.
But immediately you can tell that it's so. You don't even have to meet you. It's just got such character and such soul running throughout all the work. That
thank you.
it really does. It's there's so many people drawing nature and animals, but it's very hard to be utterly unique within that stratosphere, but I really think you achieve that, and I think it's the colours and the slight fantasy element, and I think it's worth holding out for, you know.
Yeah.
You said about I admire people who can make a living from sort of selling the things that they create for pleasure.
Yeah.
Some of my stuff is that. I'm not quite there yet, but you know, I don't know. What's your balance sort of between commissioned client work and the things you create and kind of sell? Or
So I would say that at the beginning I started off probably living off my sales online, my shop sales on Etsy, and getting more and more stockists on board. And through growing online, which is a byproduct of liking doing the work, I think sometimes, and not the other way around, which I have to explain to people sometimes. The clients then come. So I have to this date not, and that's not boastful in any way, I have to this date not gone out to send out promotional material or apply for a job. Everything that I've done has come to me through exposure, I think, and a lot of the clients, if it's Sky or, you know, like Al Jazeera, bigger clients, they will rehire because, you know, you just had a good experience together, and they came to you because they enjoyed what they saw. They didn't have any expectation of changing you or molding you for their brief. It's always been really free, like when like if Moment Skis comes and says, you know, this is the format, do what you like, and that then, you know, it's kind of like that. I don't take that for granted at all. I think I'm very lucky, and I feel like it might change one day, and I'm going to have to stay flexible and respond to that time. Because, you know, this is not necessarily how it works. So at the moment, I probably I can live off sales, so I live off print sales, but the commissions are extra. So they're like, you know, if you do big commissions, you get a few grand, put them in the bank, and they just nourish the next few months as well, you know, and you make, you know, you're able to save a little bit. So that's
I think it's true. I just think you can't please all people all of the time, and I think it's really worth maybe going through a few extra quieter or maybe not as lucrative years to really mould and retain the time and the freedom to shape you and your brand and making it an extension of you. And like you said I find it interesting what you said about the relationship between the client and the artist, because if your work is such a product of you that the moment that person picks up the phone to you or gets your tone in an email, it's what they probably imagined and would like to get. Therefore, that's why they don't want to change it, because you've spent so long making it
that thing.
So powerful in your own way that why would someone try to change that? You're a luxury, you know. You're a rarity, I suppose, in that you know. I think people who get into art direction and creative direction roles dream of commissioning people like yourself, because it's so, everyone knows a Sandra Dieckmann when they see one, you know, or at least anyone who knows your work.
So strange. it's still completely strange to me.
Me too.
It feels like it doesn't feel that long, you know. It doesn't feel, to me, it feels like I'm still 16 and I'm still deciding to come to London. I don't feel any older or wiser. I am. It's quite strange sometimes when you look back. I'm a person that's kind of, I live in a bubble like of today and the last few days and tomorrow, and sometimes if somebody asks me what have you been up to, I you know, I'd love to be this like proficient speaker that goes like, I've been involved with so and this was great and this is what is coming up and stuff. But most of the time I don't remember, because I'm just like you're just sort of like, you know, like sort of stuck in that moment. And I don't know. I think
that's a healthy thing. I think if you are there in that moment, then I think the work you create reflects that more. Yeah,
but again, like I would never beat down any other approach. Like I think, you know, some people are very good editors, much more than actually creative, and they do just as well or much more well, because of the way that they can edit their visual language and
I
share
agree.
things, and it's great, you know.
I think it's a beautiful thing about our industry is is that there is no right or wrong approach. Actually, it's just and that goes back to making it yours, because that's the only that's the only way it can that it's yours. You know, to pursue that is the only given truth.
Exactly.
Is that's the stuff that people
You can't lose.
No, you can't.
You can't, because I think if you are always trying to make everybody else happy, or not even that, but you are trying to survive, like we all are.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing when you actually fall on hard times and you have to get some money in. Making the wrong compromises can be quite fatal, I think, because then you are the boat capsizes and takes on water and you can't go back. So completely. I think I would much rather stay true to what I like doing and work in a shop part-time and kind of hone it all back a little bit. So I've always said that if things weren't selling anymore, I wouldn't haul myself out necessarily. I would just keep quiet and work on an amazing book or something in my for 8 months in the quiet dark room. I
totally agree. That's exactly what I did. I hit 6 weeks of no work when I was living in Manchester. Thankfully Manchester rent costs were kinder than London, so I was able to ride it out and remain full time. But what happened was I knew that at any point I could kind of expand on the more corporate but less me things that I was doing, and I could have made quicker money. But actually that would have taken me down a road of diluting me. And instead, I started to tell the story on a blog. I was angry and I was frustrated. And in the long run, it's expanded my brand to an even more me. So when the work did start coming back in, I knew I'd made the right call.
It's your life, and you've continued it. And you haven't lived it for anybody else. So, and you wrote a book, so that's your, that's your legacy, that's your story in a way, That I think that's the most important.
So
thing.
where in Germany are you from? I'm interested because Laura and I went to Bavarian, Germany
very different.
in the summer for the first time, and we got a camper van and we saw the Black Forest and all these incredible places. So I never knew it was such a green country, but it's stunning.
Dark green.
I'm interested if that's been an influence, if that's the kind of woods you're talking about that have influenced.
Those are probably the woods, but I'm from the north, so my area is more wet flat land, cows and fishing villages along the coast, and big dikes and lots of sheep, and it's very very cold and windy, and but still there's bits of forest there, and I have been to the Black Forest, and I think it must have been partly the stories that I grew up with, because there was a lot of Swedish literature, there was Astrid Lindgren, Ronja, the daughter of the robbers, who I always, identified with, who runs away and lives in the wilderness in a bear cave with her lover, which they're 12 or something, but But anyway, it's just these amazing stories that I grew up with, that kind of fueled, I don't know. The folksiness in a way, I think
it's really beautiful. There's nothing I don't think that can get close to it in terms of just pure fantasy and magical. A place for the imagination to just run wild.
Exactly. Hopefully that, like you said, hopefully that is something that will remain timeless. That would be the most I could ever hope for. And I'd like to see myself as an old lady sitting in a hut, with patio doors to a little lake, still drawing, but maybe having a few books under my wings, and I write little stories as well and stuff, so that's something that would be quite nice.
That's brilliant. So how did you begin sort of raising awareness of your work? I mean, right when you started to maybe find the foundations of your existing style, because in terms of prints and creating an online presence is such a crowded market, and I imagine it feels very intimidating for somebody who would be looking to start in there right now. How did you start? How did what were the first kind of steps?
I was still in university, and I really wanted to buy my first printer, which I couldn't afford. It wasn't very much money, but I had a blogger, which I had a few hundred visitors on regularly, and I said, what if I drew you some pictures and you paid me some money so I could fund my first printer? which they kindly did. And some of the images that I sell today, like the crowned crane and the red panda, are still they're like from 2009, 2010.
Oh, wow.
So they're back from funding my first printer. And I really thought at that moment, like, I had done drawings before for years, but I kind of just, there was a client there. It was just like a small client that I had had found on Twitter, but still I wanted to make it really special for them, so I tried to make it really good, and raised the funds for the printer, and then started buying my first pad of Hannemühle paper and printing some prints up. And somebody said, why don't you sell them? And then I found Etsy. So I listed a few prints on Etsy, and people were asking for more, so the money that I got through the first sales I put back into paper and ink. And I think like a few months down the line I was making my rent, which was not very much at that time. It was like £230 or something for like a room in Clapton. Tiny room, we called Tokyo, it was so tiny. And just smoked in there and drunk every day in this like big weird cloud. Yeah. And like it just kind of grew from there. People wanted to stock a few cards, and I just sort of found my way through. But most importantly, I think, when I look back, I always forget about this, but I did a few illustration projects because I didn't know anybody. And I was kind of poking around Twitter, seeing who was actually active drawing in London. I had a gap between university and starting to draw, so I didn't really know who was on the scene. I was just drawing, and so I had a little look around and tried to take part in some projects. And then I thought, I had a bit of a hoo-ha with a few people in illustration who asked me to be in this project and then rejected me and blocked me from their website. And it was really, I cried for a week and a half because there was this like, it was quite bitchy, which I'd never expected. So in a way, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. But I was also thinking, no. I am good enough at what I'm doing, and I'm going to become better, and I'm going to keep at it. Yeah. And I thought I don't have to wait for people to invite me to illustration projects. I'm just going to set up my own projects. So I did 3 projects, which was If I Was You, which was a chain of illustrators drawing each other, like what they would be like or doing if they were the other person. And then I did this thing.
I like that.
Yeah, that was really nice. And the nicest was, maybe it's still up, it's housestories.com, which every illustrator drew a story, and I just set them on this endless scrolling page on top of each other. So it was like a skyscraper, but you could see inside the stories of the building. So every illustrator would do, a level illustration. And then the Creature Curiosity project. It was just sort of like talking to people, which was really important. Getting in touch with other illustrators that were at the same level, and starting to chat and exchange fears and expectations and see different styles. And if I had to round this up, I would say like, you can't exist in a bubble, and you can't run before you can walk. It's always this, again, flux. You have to grow. You have to like ride the waves. So I think, and I still know so many people now, some of who have done really well and others who've given up. But, it's been really important to
collaboration's crucial
talk.
Because everyone's at different stages and everyone has different perspectives. And if you feed all of that into your mind, it's a wonderful thing, and it's something that I'm loving about London at the moment. I'm trying to meet at least sort of 1 or 2 new people a week, and just whether it's just meet for a coffee, go to someone's studio. It doesn't matter whether they're a student. It doesn't matter if they're not even in my industry. I just think it's really important to fill your head with new ideas and meet these people, and maybe just challenge yourself and get out of your comfort zone. And it's just, it really does accelerate. And actually, from what you said about the sort of bitchiness, I think it's something that can be quite common in not just our industry, but in the whole creative industries. I have a close friend who is an electronic musician and a DJ, and he came from a creative writing background. So he'd grown up loving music and took a real roundabout way because he studied writing, didn't have the confidence to do the music, and sort of fell back into it because it was a natural path for him. And so he started being really quite successful after 1 or 2 years, getting way ahead of not ahead of his station, but really fast progress. And what he found was some of the people that actually he'd gone to university with and were running kind of smaller club nights started to not, they wouldn't play his stuff, they wouldn't share anything, they blocked him on social media.
Oh,
and he couldn't, I thought,
it's so strange.
Oh my, wow, this is real sort
very
of
personal,
raw jealousy, really actually quite, but then you would look at that kind of negativity, and I don't understand why people don't understand that actually it just closes you further and further in, and actually, speaking of in a cloud, in a black cloud, because it's not a nice way to be. And I don't care who calls me up or asks to come to my studio, student, graduate, anyone, I let them come, because I just think you can learn from anybody, and you can all just exchange wonderful things. And I just think negativity breeds negativity.
Yeah, you reap what you sow. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
I
you're
wrote
right.
that today on a little note on my Twitter, because it's just like it applies to everything in this world. And I think that there is you can't win wars. Full stop. That's one thing that people don't realize. You just can't be a winner without like it's everything is relative and only exists around other things. You can't see light if you've never seen darkness, and the other way around, like you can't experience warmth. I was just listening to Moby Dick, and they were talking about how the main protagonist is in bed with this cannibal from this like unknown world, and he smokes this pipe at night, and he's terribly scared, and he sleeps with him in a bed despite his fears, and he wakes up with this guy straddling him in the morning, and they become best friends, and they talk about like the warmth that they felt like through this friendship and sleeping in this bed together, and how they could have never felt it if they had never been freezing all these previous nights. Like I'm going off on one, but like the philosophy behind being happy, like it's, for me, it's, things are really simple. It's just like you be nice to people. If people start using and abusing you, you're allowed to throw them out. Your prejudices don't matter, because you haven't met these people yet, so meet them first. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, just people are so protective of what they have and what they want. It's incredible. And yet they are empty, because they never do anything, they never challenge themselves, they never meet anybody. So it's just like, I'm the same. Like, anybody who wants to come, is welcome, and I have everything to learn, because I think we do. I think we all do, all of the time. It doesn't matter who's a master or anything. You always have to learn, and we're all underdogs to a degree. We are, especially. I mean, like when the illustration students of the Worcester University came last week, and Lisa Hassel from Inky Goodness was asking me, what advice can you give them on their way? And I just didn't know what to say, other than bringing it back to a human level again, and saying, like, I know this sounds really ridiculous, but everybody shits. Everybody gets naked and masturbates and fucks and eats and sleeps, and you are literally no better than any of the other person standing next to you, and there's nothing more to it. Apply it to life and your job. Like, that's it. Like, you see these like rich and famous people being gruesomely unhappy, and a person in rags being amazingly happy, and that like these ideals that are sold to us are so wrong. We are just treading water constantly. We can all stop, and just like do real things. That's,
it's so true. That's it. I'm very thankful that I grew up in quite a, not poor, but a very, very minimum wage, meagre earnings family, but actually rich in happiness. We grew up, we appreciated the time we all had together. We were a small family. I grew up near some very small woods, and next to a mill that when no one was there at night, we had this whole area to play on, and that's it. That was it. It was friendships, and it was family time, and
you grew up in my town, I think.
That's
the mill.
That's it. And I'm very thankful of never having had that, because, like you said about the light and the darkness, now that I'm fortunate enough to have been full-time freelance doing something I love for 7 years, and that's more than I could have ever hoped for. So and I know a lot of that is down to the sort of humble upbringing, really, and actually learning what matters.
It's a charmed life if you.
Yeah, massively a charmed life.
Definitely, yeah.
So Etsy, it fascinates me, because I just sort of found my way onto it, and it's not something that I don't do prints, and I don't really make too many things. I've actually been working with Laura to make a few limited sort of edition cushions with my designs, which are great, because it's not a skill I have to make anything, but but I'm still sort of working.
I've seen some bird cushions.
Yeah. Just for listeners, Laura makes it's all because of Business Little Birds Talk, and check her out on social media. So she makes sort of cushions and purses and lots of things with beautiful painted bird designs.
Yeah, very nice.
But I think it's a great platform because it's a David versus Goliath thing, isn't it? You've got. I went to a talk the other week at Offset Festival in London, and I listened to a talk by I forget the lady's title, but essentially the creative director of Liberties, and they were having a massive, big Christmas opening on Sunday. Kylie Minogue was there, all singing, all dancing, exactly, all singing, all dancing. But then everyone I know at the moment is kind of reverting and almost going against this whole digital explosion, and they want something nice and honest and handmade again. And Etsy's kind of become this platform now where you can find individual talented people like yourself who are making things and selling them. Your studio doubles up as a shop, right? Which is great. And so how have you kind of, you can't go up against giants like that, and why would you? Because we don't have the means to challenge someone like that. So it's about going back to again the personality thing and finding your little niche and your thing. How do you sort of, because it's intimidating and a very competitive market. It's
it's really confusing. Yeah. I mean,
is it? I don't know. Tell me about your experiences on Etsy.
Etsy doesn't. I mean, I'm not an ambassador for Etsy, although they've flown me to the other side of the world to talk. but I know that a lot of people struggle with it because you don't have to be invited to sell. So there's a lot of stuff on there that you wouldn't want to buy. Yeah. And other things that are really great. And I think it helped maybe being on Etsy before it became really full. The same with Society 6 and places like that. I can see how it's difficult for people to join nowadays, and I completely know that things are constantly changing. So maybe I don't even understand where it's changing to now. Etsy still works for me very much, and there isn't a lot of effort involved because I think it doesn't act as a static shop that sits on your website. This is why I like it. Although I also have a shop on my website. There is a way of conversing with each other and having treasuries and like Pinterest, you can like things and you can collate things and you can show them to other people. So you're having a constant conversation about the work on Etsy, and you get shown around. So that really, really helps. Otherwise, in terms of you're talking about Goliath and the big companies and stuff, you are signing these prints and you're getting 100% of the reward if you can sell them, because otherwise if you're going into licensing and you're selling 1,000 cards and you're getting 60 quid or something because you're getting pennies, it doesn't kind of seem fair anymore. And also your cards are everywhere, your prints are everywhere, and people don't see why they should pay. They are on platforms that have the money to promote themselves and bring themselves onto the billboards and put themselves first in Google searches. So, the small man is drowning. So in that term, I really like pursuing these, stocking in small shops and selling my own stuff, as long as that works for me. I mean, I might be telling fibs because my memory is terrible, but I think I've had some very strange emails. For example, a few years ago, somebody offered to buy my entire life's work.
Oh, wow, okay.
And literally buy my website and every single illustration
Just
I've
to buy
ever
Sandra
created.
Dieckmann.
Yeah, just buy it, and for me to start again. So they could just... I think it was for Walmart and Urban Outfitters and stuff like that.
Joking, really?
And I wouldn't. I've had
It wouldn't be you.
It would be so strange to do. It's such a weird concept to me. And anyway. Yeah.
I think you have to, I think as you go and the more experience you get, you start to understand why people invest in your work and why people are fans and follow what you do and actually buy your goods. And if suddenly you were plastered all over one of those stores, it wouldn't be you. And it's nice because. Again, that's the whole David and Goliath story. You have to work around that, and I think now people are growing a little. Okay, they're always these stores do really well for a reason, but they're tailoring to the luxury end of the market. But actually, it's I think people want the story behind it. People want to know the person who's crafted it and know that
it's about your ethical and moral code. It's about from the time that you put the pencil down, what you believe in, to what you and how you print your work, to who buys it. It's the entire story. And I think the nicest thought would be to die and for people to say, she was honest, and we like the way she did that. There is probably formulas to being very successful in a commercial world, but I wouldn't want to feel the emptiness of having given it all up just to have £500,000 in the bank and fly on an island sipping cocktails, because then my life would be empty, because all I want to do really is draw. So and I think if you're on the right path and you imagine that you win the lottery and you wouldn't change that much, that's when you're winning. It's like, and I wouldn't stop anything. It would make it marginally easier, and maybe I could have a warmer studio, but it's tiny differences. You will have a warmer studio.
That's the thing, yeah.
I will send you some logs.
Yeah. Brilliant. There we go. See, collaboration always works.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking. Miss Led, right? Joe.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah.
And I was chatting to Joe, and a very similar thing. Joe was on MySpace right at the start and used it as a platform to sort of get her work out there. And she's got a massive following, and it goes to show that actually, before everyone swamped it, she was there. And
she was there, yeah.
And it's interesting. I read a book recently, and there was the whole story of the Impressionists in France about how they were all trying for so many years to get into the prestigious salon exhibitions over and over, and one day just kind of lost their rag and set up their own thing in an attic somewhere, and look who came out of that scene. All the some of the most famous artists we will ever know, and it just goes to show that I think you have to go your own way and trust what you're doing as a creative. Otherwise, if you're swallowed up by whoever, get lost very quick.
Carve out new ways for others to go down.
That's
as
it,
well,
and pioneer. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What's happening at the moment? Anything exciting on the horizon?
I've been working with a Powerful Water Company, which is a company from Devon who produce sustainably sourced bottled water, sec energy water for sport, but they're also really interested in protecting the oceans, and I'm always up for raising awareness and money for protecting the beautiful world that we live in, really. And so we've just finished. I finished an illustration for them, which is going to be launched next week, and then possibly some branding on the bottles, and they've offered me to support me in any sort of venture that I want to take on, so maybe a big show in the new year. I haven't organised a show yet, so I'd quite like to aim high and get some big names and get some big charities involved and set up a nice big show in London somewhere.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm working with 2 publishers, which shouldn't talk about name yet, on a few different story ideas right now. So
excellent. I was looking at your stuff and I was thinking, it's crying out for a story.
I've got quite a few. I've got an old story which I'd love to redo. I've got a new story about a little bird that collects leaves and transforms himself into this big flying creature, and just to lose it all and see himself in the world. And I've got a few more ideas as well, but like maybe speaking about depression to children and just kind of addressing those kinds of topics. And like you said, I'd love to have perhaps a year where I can concentrate on these projects again, and not
absolutely wonderful.
Respond to clients. I think I've done some work with Sky, which is coming out next month as well, which is much more commercial. This is like one of the examples of commercial work, and doing set-top boxes actually for for them like a limited edition range.
Oh wow, okay.
With polar bears and flamingos
Very cool.
and all sorts. So like
Nice.
gift guide type things. So yeah, that happens sometimes.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
We all do. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Brilliant, exciting
Yeah.
times.
No,
That's really
definitely.
cool. And okay, so the last, I always ask my guests the last question. I have a section called "The Shark in the Tank," and I ask my guests to name. It can be an all thing of all time, or it can be a right now, just something that you love, something that gets you out of bed in the morning, or excites you in some way, and something that you dislike, or something that you find quite negative, or absolute open book, completely. Anything.
Can I ask you why you like Damien Hirst?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I some of his more modern stuff I'm not too into. I think some of it has become a little repetitive, but his stuff, particularly in the early 90s, I find stunning. Like the reason I call the feature that is that just the concept behind the physical impossibility of death in the mind of someone living. I think it's something to do with the creative brain. It's something that I've wrestled with over the years. The whole existential crisis thing.
Yeah.
Especially on hangovers.
Yeah, that's quite interesting.
And I just think,
oh dear,
and I just
They're
think,
getting worse.
I just think being confronted with a massive, 12-foot shark in a tank. There's this thing that's led this life of, this behemoth of a creature just there in front of you.
It makes me so sad.
That's the thing. I think the flux of emotions that you get by looking at a piece like that. I just think it just blows my mind, and I found it so original at the time when it came out, and I just find it incredible. And for someone who's immersed in a world of illustration design, I'm very drawn to fine art, and almost at some point I will look at going down that road and trying to create something that's more conceptual and larger than life myself. But yeah, I just admire it a lot, and I just find him a fascinating character, and I find that particular movement of artists, whatever you think of their work, whether it's art or not, I just found the courage and actually how it all shook things up and was part of a cultural movement in the mid-90s. It just it inspired me growing up quite a lot.
I must be I because like the only snippets that I kind of caught of it is recent news of him trying to buy his own artwork to hype his name up, and and also making artwork quite exclusive and elitist, which is for me really everything that's wrong with art. Like I love to keep things affordable and keep it like attainable for the masses, really. So like that's the thing. And maybe also because there was an animal in a tank.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. No,
maybe that could be our big show. Sandra Dieckmann versus Damien Hirst.
Oh my god, yeah. Save the shark. with that image in the front.
That'd be cool.
No, but like for me, oh god, it's so hard. Like a lot of your talkers that I've listened to have already. Joe said New York, and places, spaces. There isn't any particular piece of art. I think Rousseau, probably walking through the National Gallery and seeing the big jungle paintings, and otherwise for me, just getting out and switching off the phone, switching off the computer, and literally like going for a walk on the beach with the waves hitting the shore, and it's just being like a wild atmosphere, and being completely just like unimportant really as a person. That I find really humbling, and then coming back and being allowed to be alive, being allowed to create, and just having these years. Yeah, that's
I think that's a wonderful answer. And I completely agree.
That's it. Really. Yeah.
And any dislikes or any negatives? I mean, as we know, negative can be a positive. It's again open book. Just is there anything that sort of irks you or you dislike, or?
I think, it's probably social media being the most important tool, and also the thing that I hate the most about what we do, because it's absolutely necessary as a tool, and it does get all the work, but I think it's so new and we don't quite understand what's going to happen yet. I'm not like somebody that's like, oh, stay with the old, like classic. But I do think like people are so glued to the screen, and they're so lost in creating this abstract persona. And I find that with like young people and students as well that come into illustration now, they kind of have this abstract idea of who you are. Like it's nearly like you're not approachable anymore. And like I do everything I can to remove that, to just say like, this is I am getting older, and I will continue working, and that will always be different than what you will start now. Like, and it's not like, there's competition. Healthy competition is great. Criticism is amazing and necessary, but like you don't have to win over others.
No, and you I don't think you can. We're in such a vast amount of people, like with all different things that you can't. There is, like I say, competition is healthy to a degree, but like you say, it's there is no real competition. I think the real challenge is to find you and to find what that real inner person, and when you do, no one can compete with that because it's totally individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I agree on the social media front.
It's very strange.
People with their heads down, missing all the amazing things happening, all the tiny things around.
Yeah,
them. I'm trying to kind of detach myself at the moment. Mm-hmm. Of course, I use it prolifically. We all have to.
Oh yeah, it's always on. I'm checking it.
But I'm trying to structure that now so that I'm not missing the world around me so much, and become a little bit more regimental with the ways that I utilize.
We should promote media-free hours every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Like it's so sad, like lying in bed next to somebody and checking your phone at 2 a.m. or like I've done that, and like thinking about the best photo that you can take on a walk when it's actually about the walk, or like I unfollow people when I see too many intimate shots of them in bed with the person they love, because that does not belong there.
No, it doesn't.
Like, it does not. This is like
that belongs in there.
Yeah, it's like this is sacred. This is that's your life, and this is your work. So
of course, absolutely, yeah, that's it.
To hold that out for followers is just like
exactly,
you just sell happiness like that. It's just like no,
exactly. Keep your baby in your front room.
So that I am hateful about. Keep your baby in the bag.
Again, cats. I love cats. I'm a massive cat lover.
I have a cat. I love all animals.
But there's a cat video festival in America. I'll go to that.
No, that's weird. And also, like, it's like there's enough people doing like picture of their work, picture of the cat, picture of video of some cute badgers kissing, and that will get them the followers. Where like the content gets completely obstrued. You can like immediately read that page as wanting followers, and not actually speaking to anybody anymore. So that's not so. Yeah, another thing.
Completely. Well, Sandra, it's been an absolute pleasure, and
thanks for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed hearing from Sandra Dieckmann. I loved spending time with her in the studio drinking red wine on that evening. I headed down there with Laura from Little Birds Talk, who's just starting out as a maker, and she's just owned her style so well. It brings her personality through there. You can tell that straight away when you meet her, when you talk to her, when you check out Mama Wolf Studio and look at all the beautiful products that are kind of hanging from the rafters and making up that feel that she described as like a child's den. And it's brilliant. She's so unashamed and so uncompromising about her personal style and what she's doing. And I think you attract like for like. I think people buy into that and really come to you for what you bring, which is something totally unique. And it can only be you, which, to be honest, goes right back to the title of the show. That's why I wanted to call this thing Arrest All Mimics, because it's so important to find you and use the influences. We all have them, but not mimic them and really make them, put your spin on things and make it something that no one can replicate. I think that's the key to all good art, especially good art that connects with large numbers of people, even small numbers of people. If something resonates with one individual, then I think you're doing something right. But anyway, do go and check out Sandra's work on the links she gave, and if you're after any cool, unique Christmas presents or cards or prints or anything else that Sandra does, go and check them out. They're fantastic quality. Thanks to Laura, I've actually got them on our living room wall at the minute, 2 or 3 pieces up there, and they're beautiful quality. They come out so well, and when you frame them, they really do look like something special. A little plug for myself, a little mention. I'm delighted that I've been shortlisted for the London Small Business Awards, which is the inaugural awards ceremony of its kind. And there's lots of categories, and everything from best restaurant to best club, nightlife type thing. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out that I've been nominated for the best creative agency 2015. I think it's this year. I should know that, but there's me and 5 other agencies. So go and check it out and vote for who you think is worthy of the award. I would be delighted if you thought that was me, but I want it to be an honest vote. It's kind of cool. I'm a freelancer. I wouldn't normally be categorised as an agency, and I've written a piece on the topic about how doing things like this, the podcast, writing, and being a part of things, actually, if you behave like an agency, you can quite easily use the network around you to become one. So check out the piece. That's on Design Week's website, in my usual spot. You can do that at awards.london, and you'll see the categories there. It's the Creative Agency of the Year category. Give me a vote if you've got the time and you like my work. I'm kind of fighting the freelancers' corner on this one. I'm a one-man band up against much bigger agencies with 10-plus employees, and it would mean the world if I could win the thing. But if not, then it's just a real honour to be shortlisted. So hopefully with the listeners of Arrest All Mimics' help, I can do this thing and at least have a decent night out at the awards ceremony, and we'll see what happens. You just never know, right? It'd be quite an ironic thing for one man to win an agency award, but who knows? It'd be really cool to pioneer such a thing. So just to reiterate, I want to thank everyone who's made this show such a pleasure to be the host of and to produce this year, 2015. It's been a massive year for me personally, and hopefully you guys have learned a lot of cool things and heard a lot of cool stories from my guests, and I want to engage more with you guys, so do hit us up, moving into the new year on the Twitter at ArrestAllMimics. Email me at arrestallmimics@gmail.com with any suggestions. If you want to come on the show, let me know why you think that's a good idea, and I'll listen to all applications, where I just want to hear who's out there. There's loads of people that I miss on a daily basis that you can never be aware of every artist that's going on, but I want to hear suggestions and get things moving fast in 2016. Big plans, so a massive thank you for all your support, and anyone who's listened or spread the word. It really does mean the world, because this is something I'm really enjoying doing, and I really want to make this big in 2016 and beyond. So without you guys, I will be nothing, and I cannot do that. So thank you. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you early in January with some new amazing guests. Take care, guys. Have a good one.